kept the bomb bay doors open and jettisoned the rear door on the right side of the fuselage, and landed back in England with the bomb bay doors open.
But you had landing gear and all that stuff.
Yes.
Wow, that's still. Must have felt a little funny flying like that the whole time, I'm sure.
Well, one of the aspects was that many of us smoked in those days, and it was typical that once you got below 10,000 feet and off of oxygen that the guys would light up. Well, that was not to be on this flight.
I guess not all those fumes. My goodness. Now, you have a picture here, and I understand that you went through quite an experience of a mid-air collision.
Yes.
Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that one.
That was our 20th mission out of 25 missions, and that happened on April 5th of 1945. And we had gone into Ingolstadt, Germany on a fairly low-level bombing mission. I think it was under 15,000 feet. And on the return flight, we had dropped down somewhat altitude-wise, and we had just crossed the German-Belgian border near St. Vith, Belgium. By this time we were in a cold front, and you couldn't see from here to 30 or 40 feet.
Now, did you guys fly the same way? You were staggered at different levels?
Yeah,
all the planes are in rough formation?
Yes. Basically, in a squadron, there was the lead squadron of 3 planes, and then the high squadron of 3 at a slightly different altitude, and then the low squadron on the left, and then a tail end Charlie to fill in.
Right. Kept an eye on fighters.
we were on that particular day. I was flying deputy lead of the squadron. No, I take that back. I was flying. That was another mission. That was the Pilsen raid. I was flying lead on the high element to the right, and so we were starting what they called a frontal penetration, which was a method of dispersing the individual planes to fly through this heavy cloud formation. And we basically started later than we should have. Shortly after entering this, the clouds where you couldn't really see, all of a sudden why another plane pancaked down on top of our B-17.
You didn't see it at all?
Right. I saw the other plane pass over the top of us, maybe 2 seconds. It was that dense. And in the process, the number 1 propeller on the left engine, outboard engine of the other B-17, knocked my co-pilot's right window in to the cockpit and jammed our control columns. And just in front of the windshield, that propeller tore off the top of the nose of our plane.
Yeah, you have the picture. That's quite a lot of damage. I can't believe it still flew.
Yes.
Was your co-pilot hurt?
No, he wasn't hurt. Missed his head by about that much.
Oh my
the
God.
propeller. Well, as they passed over us, our propellers damaged the left wing of the other plane.
Oh, wow.
And they couldn't control it. They all bailed out successfully. Nobody was
You got
hurt.
to see them all bail?
No, I didn't.
Oh.
I never saw them at all. The fellows that were in the nose of my ship just thought the plane had disintegrated, and actually it went into a violent downward turn because the control columns were jammed, and they bailed out successfully. And then I decided that I got up with the intention that the rest of us would bail out, and I realized I still had the right engines and the right wing, because I thought, because
Right.
we went over so much that they were torn off, but it wasn't. So I said to my co-pilot, I said, Dick, we'll try to get this thing under control. Excuse me. And we're talking seconds now, not minutes.
What altitude were you at? Because by then you have no pressurization or anything, right?
Well, we didn't have that to begin with.
Oh, okay.
We still had oxygen,
Oxygen. Right.
although we were below 10,000
Oh, okay.
feet. I think around 7,000 feet. But anyway, I determined quickly that we would fly westerly for up to an hour to stay over land.
Because you're over enemy territory at that.
Well, we were
Czechoslovakia,
just into Belgium, and by that time, why, it had been taken over by the Allied forces. But
What'd you do with your bombs? You still had all them on board?
no,
then?
they had been released.
Okay.
Yes, and so anyway, the most of the flight instruments were damaged or non-effective. The pitot tubes, which provide for elevation and airspeed, were torn off, and the artificial horizon, which is a gyroscope, it tumbled.
Right, the ADI. I mean, you had no
The only thing I had was the magnetic compass, so I could go west, and the needle ball, which assisted me in giving some orientation. And I put on full power and got the plane level by the seat of my pants, so to speak, in the clouds. And we were able to climb up above the clouds and use the undercast as the horizon.
Well, it must have been, wasn't the air just buffeting in there? I mean, that must
yes,
have been...
we were in a snowstorm. Snow was coming in.
Oh my God.
You're right. Yeah.
Now, did you tell your crew that another plane had hit you, or?
No, I did not. I didn't want to upset them anymore.
Right.
I just told them
They
to
just
stand.
thought you had some damage to the plane?
Yeah, I just told them to stand by, to bail out, put their parachutes on, chest packs on. Actually, I didn't know what happened to the guys in the nose. I really didn't.
Oh, you didn't know if they were okay or not?
I didn't know.
Right.
No. And, but anyway, we got up above the clouds, and about 45, well, I decided that we would fly up to an hour westerly to stay over land, and hope to find a hole in the clouds to find a place to land.
Right.
The alternative was, if we didn't find the place to land, that I would head the plane toward the North Sea on a northeast heading, put it on autopilot, and bail out. Bail out. The very first hole in the clouds that we could see the ground was a P-51 fighter strip.
Oh my goodness.
How lucky can you get?
Was that long enough for you to land on?
Well, it was a short.
It worked.
Yeah, it was a short runway. Typically, we were flying off of 5,000 foot.
Well, what was your
runways.
visual? I mean, could you see? Was your windshield?
I could, yes. And very fortunate that the windshields were not damaged.
Right.
Otherwise, we would have had to bail out because of the airflow.
You still had to struggle to fly that, I'm sure.
Oh, yes, yeah. It was a bit of a chore. We actually had to, once we got into the pattern, to land, and of course we didn't have a radio, was not effective. And
oh, you had no communication? No radio?
No communication.
Oh, so
we were firing very pistol flares out of the
show you were in
top.
stress.
Yeah, that we were letting them know we were distressed.
But I wondered, but nobody did a visual, nobody did a flyby by your plane, they probably would have.
No.
Oh my goodness.
They thought we had an all plastic nose.
Oh my goodness.
But and we actually had to have the radio operator wind the wheels down manually
Oh, the hydraulics were missing?
Yeah, the hydraulics were out. That is the electrical system. And then also on the flaps too. And on the first approach, I knew because it was a short runway, and I didn't want to stall the plane out.
Right.
And again, I didn't have an airspeed indicator, and I didn't want a high-speed stall it either. So I decided to go around on the first one, came around, landed on the second, kept the tail high to help slow the plane down, and applied the brakes gingerly so that we didn't nose over.
Right.
And ended up about 25 feet off of the end of the runway, which on a short runway, metal clad at that. And so we were very lucky. And
how did you guys feel when you looked at the outside plane? It must have looked, oh my God, you couldn't believe you flew it like that, could you?
yeah, that's right. The first thing I did, of course, was to go down to the nose and see what was there. There was no evidence of any injuries, and the guys were gone. And they sent a couple of jeeps out to peruse what the situation was, and then they took us in and had the medics check us over and interviewed us and gave us a little medication in the form of cognac.
Now, did they know about the other plane having gone down?
No, they didn't know. Actually, the fellows bailed out over near St. Vith, and the area there was still strewn with disabled tanks and bodies, and from the leftover from the Battle of the Bulge and later skirmishes, and a couple of them got jeep rides into Luxembourg, and others somehow got to Brussels. We landed at a place called Charleroi, Belgium, which was roughly 20 miles southeast of Brussels. And after interviewing us, they took us into Brussels, and we stayed there overnight, and then the RAF flew us back to Grafton Underwood in a C-47, which is the cargo version, or the Army version of the DC-3, actually. But they gave us a few days off, and we were back flying in the missions, both crews.
Were you a little nervous about flying the next time? Probably not, because you flew that thing like it was...
Yeah, you knew you had a job to do. Actually, on the next mission, which was over Royan, France, on the west coast of France, where the Germans still had a stronghold, it was a low-level mission with two 1,000-pound bombs and two 2,000-pound bombs, one of each on each side of the bomb rack. And at bombs away, the 2,000-pound bomb, which was on the lower rack on the right side, hung up.
Oh.
And the 1,000-pounder dropped on top of it.
Oh my God.
And we had it was procedure that the radio man would watch to see if all of the bombs dropped.
Right.
And report if there was any problems. So Wayne called me and said, we've got a problem. So I got the Toggelier, which is a substitute for a bombardier, Ed Nestor, and Ed went back with a screwdriver, and the bomb bay doors, of course, are open.
Right.
And I pulled out a formation purposely out over the water in case we blew up, because these bombs were armed. They were spinning.
Certain time or something.
Yeah. And So he got there, and Wayne held on to him.
Belt loop.
That's right.
Oh my God.
And with a screwdriver, he was able to release
Oh wow.
release the bombs.
And he's hanging over the open bomb bay doors during all this.
Right.
Oh my goodness. And you guys are, I mean, for all you know, you're going to blow up the next second.
That's right.
Oh
yeah.
my God.
Yeah. And afterwards, we were able to rejoin the group. Fortunately, there weren't any fighters in the area.
Yeah, you would have been a sitting duck for that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And that was towards the end of your mission. You only had a couple more left to fly. I mean, you must have been feeling pretty.
Well, we really didn't know how many more we had to fly. The fact that we had the mid-air collision and survived it may have actually saved our lives, because we flew less missions. When you think about it, we ended up flying 5 more, and I think the Cathy crew flew 3 more afterward. It was George Cathy's 25th mission on his 25th birthday.
Oh, no kidding.
Isn't that amazing?
Wow.
And he's since passed away. I didn't meet him until, I think it was 1997 at a reunion of the bomb group in St. Louis. And anyway, but I had been in touch with his co-pilot, John Hines. John and I were bridge partners on occasion in England during the war, and then he was also down at Istres near Marseille when they moved the group down there after VE Day. And we were flying missions called, named after colors. One of them was the Green Project, non-combat, where we were flying ground troops from near Marseille from Istres down to Casablanca, and then they were flying them over to Brazil in DC-4s and then back up to Miami. On our return trip, we were flying French displaced persons from Port Lyoté, which was about 90 miles north of Casablanca. At that time, Port Lyoté was a naval air station, U.S. Naval Air Station. But, and we flew that, I think I flew 6 or 8 of those missions.
Which plane were you flying for that?
The B-17.
Oh, really? How many people?
Well, they basically stripped the armament off.
And then just seated everybody along the...
And built benches along the sides of the fuselage. And I think maybe up to 20 people, pretty well crowded in, you know.
Right.
But anyway, they were glad to get back to France.
I bet.
Actually, some of them, I learned just this past weekend, some of them had been sympathetic to the Germans and the Vichy government, and were being taken back as prisoners.
Oh my goodness.
Now another mission that we had was to fly Greeks back to Athens from Munich, but to do so we had to fly through the Brenner Pass below 10,000 feet, and we went up. Our crew went up there twice to Munich, and the weather was such that we never actually flew any of those missions. But they were taking people back to Athens under guard.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, because they had been sympathetic.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And I don't know any particular crew that did that. I had heard that on occasion that they went clear around back to Istres and then to Rome and then to Athens to deliver these crews. But that was a much longer trip than going through the Brenner Pass.
I meant to ask you, when you had your collision with that other plane, did they determine, I'm sure they did some type of inquiry, did they determine that
I really...
With the low visibility, it obviously wasn't, I mean, you didn't get disciplined, or you didn't get a medal for flying, making it home?
No. Well, It was toward the end of the war, and I was told that I was supposed to get the DFC for being able to land.
Well, you would think.
But actually, I think there was some politics involved there, and
Naturally.
but I was glad to survive it.
Was that, did any of them ever tell you that that was quite a bit of damage? They were surprised that it made it back, or?
Yes, yeah. Everybody congratulated me on being able to.
Well, I mean, just
land
by
the
looking
thing.
at it, if you don't know anything about planes, I mean, it's amazing. I mean,
Yeah. It really wasn't airworthy afterward. They salvaged the plane. Of course, it was toward the end of the war.
right.
So there was no need to rehab it, yes.
Now, when you were in England, I know our crews, even though the officers
Yes.
and half the crew was enlisted, but you
Yes.
guys still hung together. I mean, I know that some of the guys said it was funny when the RAF crews would sometimes get together with them. They were so conscious of officers and enlisted
Yeah.
that they couldn't believe that we were so lax about that. But you guys were,
Well, we basically, we were billeted and with different mess halls and different club and all of that. But we spent some time together, and basically my philosophy was that here we are all doing the same job with having different responsibilities, but we were all putting our necks out, and there was no rank as far as I was concerned.
right.
Yeah.
Now, did any of your crew other than you and the co-pilot, did you encourage them to at least have some fundamentals of flying, or sometimes the pilots?
Well, the co-pilot, of course, went through similar
Right.
training,
Right.
and in fact, I made sure that he flew close to 50% of the time
Right.
that
Stay
we
current,
were in
right.
the air, so that he maintained his abilities to land the plane in case I was disabled.
Right.
And the other members did not have flying experience, though. And the Dewey Young, of course, was the navigator, and he did a very fine job of navigating. And the original crew included a bombardier in training, that is, here down in Gulfport, Mississippi. But Ernie was assigned to another crew because they basically, the full bombardiers were assigned to lead crews. And then the toggleier in our crew was formerly a waist gunner, and they moved him in, and because the ships besides the lead ship were dropping their bombs on the visual sighting of the lead ship dropping its bombs. And